Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here, and in honor of Black History Month, I am coming through to give you books you should read this holiday month. First up is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I've already have a review of this book up on my website that I will link below, but I think during Black History Month, as it is the telling of the Great Migration with Black people migrating from the South to the North in search of freedom and liberation, I think this is a book that everyone should read. Next is Crack by Edwidge Danticat. She is an amazing writer, and the book is one of those that definitely sits with you and tells part of the history of life in Haiti. So, as we're across the diaspora, I think everyone should definitely read this book or something by this phenomenal writer. Next is SOULJAH by the incomparable Toni Morrison. If you know me, you know I think she's one of the greatest writers to ever grace this land. So SOULJAH is a book that honestly changed my life and changed the way in which I write. It follows a woman who is comfortable within her own skin. I would say that is the most significant aspect of this book, is she's unapologetically her, and I think that you cannot read this book and not be changed. The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister SOULJAH is honestly one of my all-time favorite books. It follows winter and it tells the story, often overlooked in urban America, of this young woman trying to figure her way out in this world while also being surrounded by and caught up in the lifestyle of fast money. Similar to The Coldest Winter Ever, Fly Girl tells the story of a young woman who is trying to figure it out and make her way in the world while dealing with a lifestyle that is different from her own. What makes this story unique from the one before it is it happens in two completely different cities with two completely different styles of parenting, and I think that makes all the difference when it comes to the outcome. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know Salt by Nayyirah Waheed is one of the best books I think has ever been written. It's a book of poetry, but it's also therapy. It's raw vulnerability. It is a book that you will not regret reading. I have a book review for this book that you will be able to find by clicking the link above or below. Anyway the Wind Blows by Elan Harris is a book that I should not have been reading as a young teenager, but I did, and I'm so grateful that I did, because he creates a world of characters that are messy and dramatic and undone and fully themselves in such a way that you can't put it down, even though you're mortified by some of the choices that they're making. I definitely want this list to show the full breadth and range of writing within the Black community. So it's not all highbrow, it's not all lowbrow. These are books that I love and appreciate and think that everyone will walk away, having read them, a more open-minded human being. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates is a book that is so profound and so emotional and felt so personal to my life that there were moments on the train when I just had to stop reading to stop myself from crying in public. That's how emotionally charged and intimate this book feels. It tells his story, it tells the story of his friend. It is a larger message of Black people in America. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe is undoubtedly one of the most amazing books you will ever read. It is a deep dive into colonization, how it disrupts communities and tribes, and it will stay with you long after you read it. It is no secret that Roxane Gay is a literary bae of mine, and her series of essays in Bad Feminist are groundbreaking, forward-thinking, and inspire all of us to consider our place in this world, how we navigate the world, and what we may be turning a blind eye to. Americana by Chimamanda Adichie is a love story, but more than that, it's a critical and cultural analysis of Blackness and how that is accepted and quantified throughout the world, specifically in Britain and America. A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James is a book that I have reviewed before and cannot praise enough. It's an amazing journey, an amazing epic tale that takes you through an assassination attempt on the life of Bob Marley, but it is so much more than that. The characters are so much more robust than that. It is a page turner and it will change you. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin is a book that will leave you raw and open, because that's how he is in this letter that he's writing to his nephew, talking about coming into manhood and what it means to be a Black man in America. But you don't have to be a Black man in America to relate to what he's sharing and to understand the trajectory of his life and how that was laid out for him. It's amazing. The final quote of the book will shake you, and I think it's something that everyone should read from the time of adolescence when you're trying to figure out who you are to any other point in life. Zami by Audre Lorde is a book that I have reviewed, but it is a story of Audre going on a search to find the homeland of her mother, but discovering herself, understanding her queerness. And it is a book that I think that every queer identifying person needs to read, is a mandatory reading, and is beneficial for everyone else also. Yellow Black by Hakeem Madhubuti is a story that follows the first 21 years of his life prior to the extraordinary work that he has gone on to do in the Black community. But more importantly than that, it tells the story of the sacrifices that his mother made for him and his siblings. And I think it's so important for each of us during this time and always to remember that there are people who sacrificed, who gave their lives, their blood, sweat, and tears for us to sit here and have the privileges and opportunities that we have today. Native Son by Richard Wright is the following of a young man who is essentially an outcast from the start, but he gets this job, he's attempting to change his life, and he does something unthinkable and ends up fighting for his life within the judicial system. And I think that is so appropriate to our current day and age, because the fight for criminal justice reform is still happening. This next book tells the story of the poet laureate Maya Angelou, and I think that she is so well known for her poetry, but this book is so profound, especially for young women who are trying to figure out figure out who and how they want to be in the world. There's specifically a segment that talks about her not speaking for a period of time and what that meant and how it changed and shifted the way in which she operates through the world and connects with other people. So I think it's something that we can all learn from. Black Skin, White Mask by Frantz Fanon is a study, a breakdown of race, what it means, how it has shifted throughout the world, the role that it plays, and how all of us are impacted by the system that has been created. You will only be doing yourself a favor by choosing to read this book. Whistling Vivaldi by Claude Steele is a book that I am forever grateful that I read. It's a book that breaks down and attacks stereotype threat and how we navigate through the world when we are forced to operate within stereotypes and expectations that others have designed for us, and how we can move beyond that and truly be successful and be our full selves. Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria by Dr. Beverly Tatum is a book that has been extremely helpful for me when navigating systems and spaces for which people of color joining together has been questioned. So it talks about the way in which we as humans operate And it kind of hones in on the need for people of color to have safe spaces and how that isn't a threat, and how that view of it as oppositional or threatening is problematic, and what we can all do to tackle and combat it. Cheaters by Eric Jerome Dickey is another book that I read when I was too young to be reading it, but greatly appreciate it, and it shaped my writing in such a way. But I love that this is written from a male's perspective, but it's so unifying, and it talks about the human life and relationships and how sometimes our desires change and shift. And it kind of demonstrates the way that you might not want to handle that in a relationship, but it brings the humanity to it. The Autobiography of Malcolm X is a book that you probably knew would make the list because it has shaped and impacted so many lives of African Americans in America. But it is a book that tells the history of Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. It so greatly encapsulate what is the American story, what it means to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Even if you have no bootstraps, you like the ability and capacity to have to create them. He's self-taught. He obviously changed the world, and what he goes through, who he becomes, and his thinking will cause you to question your own. It will cause you to question the way in which you navigate life. It will cause you to think about what you really want your legacy to be and whether or not your actions support that. Passing by Nella Larson tells the story of a woman who passes as white, how that changes her life and how it impacts those around her. And I think it's such an important part of our history. For my science fiction readers or my sci-fi readers, Kindred by Octavia Butler is for you. Imagine being in an interracial marriage, then being transported back into the time of slavery. Now you are enslaved, but your husband is free. If I happen to have missed any of the books that you would have chosen, please feel free to leave them in the comment box down below. And who knows, maybe I'll actually get to review them this year. Before you head out, those are my books, but I have a few other recommendations of things you should check out this month. The first is The Case for Reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which argues why Black people should receive reparations. The next recommendations are a series of poems from any of these brilliant writers, whether it be poetry from Lucille Clifton, poems from Mr. Langston Hughes, the epicness of Nikki Giovanni, the soul-stirringness of Miss Sonia Sanchez, or the brilliance of Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. Let's celebrate us and appreciate the literary contributions that our scholars have given us. Until next time, everyone, please remember to give time and to have the best day of your life on purpose. Also, for those of you inquiring, I do still have buttons, my Ms. Malcolm Hughes pins, and the details on how to get those are below.